If you get here, opt out Brevard. Darcy Otto. Parent, teacher. One each. You, my friend, are recognized.
Thank you. My name is Darcy Otto. I am a National Board Certified teacher. I have a master's degree in education, and I'm currently writing my PhD, or I'm writing my dissertation for a PhD in education policy. I think it's important to say those things because educators are systematically excluded from the conversation about what is best in education. So I start by sort of mentioning my credentials because I think that they're important. I'm also the moderator of Opt Out Brevard, which is a group of about 1,800 community members who are advocating for reasonable quantity, reasonable quality, and reasonable use of assessment in our public schools. I'm also the parent of 2 public school children, and maybe most importantly to you, I am a super voter. I had comments prepared. And then yesterday, I watched the State Board of Education meeting, and I decided to entirely change my comments based on that. Yesterday, Superintendent Carvalho addressed the State Board of Education regarding the use of FSA data. I'm not sure if you watched it. But he called Florida's accountability system fragile, and I would definitely agree with that. And then Gary Chartrand, who is the vice chair of the State Board of Ed, echoed his sentiments, and he said that he has a concern that has always been that if we don't use the accountability system, that if we don't have a trusted accountability system, then shame on us as a state board. I can say with absolute confidence that we do not have a trusted accountability system in the state of Florida. And I think there's a really simple reason that we don't have a trusted accountability system. And that's because before 1998, we realized in Florida that we had a problem with our education system. So we decided to test, to figure out what the problem was and then fix it. And when things weren't going exactly as we had anticipated, we tested more and then we punished. And then we tested and we punished. So the pendulum started swinging. And as a pendulum always does, when you push too far, the pendulum goes too far in the other direction. And so what we need to do, instead of continuing to test and punish, is to have a sort of a paradigm shift. And it's a very simple solution. And I think the solution that we're all looking for to stop the 45,000 letters and emails that Senator Legg is complaining about is to simply remove the high stakes that are legislatively attached to our assessment. It's a very simple solution, because when you remove the high stakes, you stop the punishment, and then we, as educators, can use the assessment for what it's designed for, to inform instruction. But we can't do that now because we cannot see the assessment, because statutorily we are prevented from seeing the assessment. So my ask to you is to do 2 things. Remove the high stakes and revisit State Statute 1008.23, which is the confidentiality of assessment instruments, which prevents us statutorily from viewing the assessments. And I would love to entertain any questions that you have.
Very well-informed conversation. How would you propose teachers' raises be based upon?
It's such a complex issue. See, the problem is there's no research to support the fact that you can use a carrot-stick method. So you can't use a highly cognitive skill like education and treat teachers like, like you're dangling a carrot and say, go get this. So you have to start by paying teachers well, and incentivizing just doesn't work because we're not dogs. It's not a Pavlov's dog kind of thing where you pay them based on performance. The idea that you can use a pay-for-performance scale is a business model, and education is not a business. So you have to just get rid of that whole concept, because when you tie test data, you're assuming that children are widgets, and they are not. So when you go back to using the human factor, pay for performance just simply doesn't work. I know you don't want to hear that, but
I'm fine hearing that, but I haven't heard a solution. Just pay because
Well,
per year, per tenure?
I know
No hire, no fire?
when you say tenure, it's like, but see, here's the problem. Education is, yes, I mean, you pay based on experience. Why? Education is the only industry that we don't want to value experience. You don't go to your heart surgeon and go, give me the guy straight out of college. I want the brand new guy to operate on me, right? You want experience, don't you? Because experience is beneficial. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. That wasn't rhetorical. Right? We value experience. Now, certainly there are more factors. You have to evaluate teachers. I'm not just saying let them sit there once they earn tenure. People think of this idea of tenure as a job for life, which it is not. Tenure is this idea that once you prove your worth, you have a job. We don't have that anymore, Usher in Senate Bill 736. We don't have that. That's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing?
No, it is not. I don't want to send my children to school where they're going to get that newbie who has not, doesn't have the advantage of experience. I know that for myself as a teacher, I went to school to be a teacher. I trained with Connecticut's State Teacher of the Year. She was phenomenal. I still look with a little bit of regret on the 3 or 4 first years of teaching because it takes that long to season yourself as an educator.
Nothing you said is would I argue, but I go back to my original question. If paying for performance for teacher by student learning gains and peer review is not acceptable in the teaching profession as a basis for raises, then what is? Just each year a step raise?
A step raise is reasonable, but you can also do things like coaching. Like I mentored other teachers when we had the Dale Hickman, also National Board Certified, is a reasonable opportunity when, assisting new teachers, all of those things. So additional supplements, but simply paying people a living wage is I think, a reasonable start.
Paying more, you won't get an argument on the stage.
You will with me. What is a living wage, please?
I would have to do an economic evaluation, but I'll tell you right now, I've been teaching for 14 years. I have a master's degree, and I make $41,000. I think that is outrageous, because nowhere is that reasonable. In no other industry is that reasonable. 14 years of experience with a master's degree and, I don't know, God willing, 10 months shy of a PhD.
I'm just asking, what is a reasonable? It was a simple question.
I could make more money.
Experience. My question is what is the starting wage that you're looking for?
That is a reality. I could make more money as an hourly employee at Target or at Starbucks, and I don't think that values the expertise of an educational professional. And I think that's the problem. We have a situation in our state where we don't value educators as professionals. And we need to really look at the profession of education and the deprofessionalizing of our profession.
Actually, this is the first time that I will counter you slightly. I think pay per performance paid based on your students' learning gains and your peer review does value your profession. Step raises does the exact opposite. Step raises says, hang on, no matter what, if you're here for 12 more months, whether you achieved higher, whether you contacted parents, whether you engaged the student, or you showed up when the bell rang and left when the bell rang, either one, both those teachers get the same raise. It does not motivate the teacher that works hard and extra to do hard and extra work. It only benefits the one that did not. And so we are trying to move away from a system that rewards the least effective to one that rewards the professionals.
Except that I will disagree with you, because all research indicates that the single most definitive factor of how students will perform is, do you know? It is not the teacher. It is not the teacher, and that's why VAM doesn't work. It is economics. The economic situation that a student is in at home is the single most important factor of how a student is going to perform on a standardized test. So I know that you like to think that that is like the carrot that you can dangle to make a teacher work harder, but it doesn't work.
Not only in just my personal belief, but also per the Constitution, every child in the state has the right to learn, regardless of their economic, social, home-based So we don't ask you to take children from bad situations and then in order to get your raise, you must make them grade level. You must show them learning gains. And every child, no matter how their home is, has the right to learn and will show learning gains with a professional teacher.
If you were using an authentic assessment, but you're not. That's the problem. That's what non-educators don't understand about assessment is you're not using an authentic measure of assessment. And that's why at Opt-out Brevard, we cannot advocate for these measures of assessment because they are not authentic. They don't measure learning gains.
So what is an authentic measure?
Well, that's what we do all the time. I'm a professional educator. I can measure assessment every day if you let me do my job, if you let me do what I do as a teacher rather than prepare children for tests. And our classrooms have become test prep factories because now what we're doing is we're tying teacher pay into assessment because we have a love affair with data, so much so that we're tying teacher pay into high school. Right, my SAT scores. So when I say the deprofessionalizing of the profession, it is an absolute love affair with data. But we've gotten so far away from the place where we trust educators to evaluate us the way that your teachers evaluated you, and we've all become relatively successful.
And I appreciate this debate, if you will, very much. But keep in mind that before assessment, we were 46th in the nation in quality of education, and we've risen to 7th.
I absolutely will debate that.
You can't. It's a fact.
Well, what measure are you using? What metric are you using?
My own students that graduate, go on to college, get their master's degrees, get their bachelor's science degrees.
Not true. I presume you're using
Education Weekly.
No,
the one that you probably cite.
Not true. Look at our SAT scores. We lag the nation in SAT scores. There are only 4 states that are behind us in SAT scores. Texas is the only state.
How's our graduation rates?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Right.
20% higher than they were 20 years ago.
Well, it doesn't.
The
problem is all of those metrics by which you graduate students, you fluctuate every year. So you have to look at longitudinal data that has relatively stable metrics like SAT scores. You can't keep changing the goalpost and then say we're getting better. That's what we're doing all the time with our metrics. You have to look at something like PISA scores.
I love that when we were 46th by Education Weekly, that was the standard bearer.
Education Weekly is not peer reviewed, so that's really not
the standard bearer. But now that we're 7th, it's discarded.
No, but see, this is what you cannot do that because if that's the platform, and you're going to say that we're getting better by testing and punishing, and then say, well, what's the matter? How come we can't retain teachers? You can't retain teachers because we don't pay them well. And everybody says, well, we go into the profession knowing that we're not going to be paid well. Yeah, sure. Well, then let us be who we are as educators and say, at least if we're going to get a salary that is, nobody wants to be rich when they're a teacher, right? We know that. At least let us do our job and educate and be professionals. But don't say that what we're doing is working because it is not. And if you want to have legislation that is going to let kids learn, then let teachers teach and at least consult professionals who know both education and policy before making education policy. And if you want to know why you're getting 45,000 emails about the failed rollout and the failed implementation and the failed usage of FSA data, it's because it failed.
Well, I will tell you that this has been fun. You are a rock star. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Mr.
I was giving the hair eyeball to my class.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like, I am not arguing.
Oh, good.
I
I
just
love
want to
it.
ask you, you made a comment that you could make more money at Target than you can
Love
teaching.
it. Sure.
Okay, and you make $44,000?
$41,000, 14-year veteran.
$41,000. And if somebody at Target was making $15, working 50 hours, working 52 weeks, that'd be $42,000. Now you're working, if I'm not mistaken, 10 months, let's just say, correct, for $41,000 with no stipend. Are you working 10 months?
I am working 10 months, about 65 or more
65?
hours a week.
Well,
and if I worked 50 hours a week, I would make
I'm not going to
overtime.
argue. I'm just going to say, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but.
You don't, you think I don't work
you don't-
65 hours a
You,
week?
you might, but I know that for the union contract.
I am not unionized.
It doesn't matter, but the
I'm sorry,
contract
I'm
says
sorry.
you.
First of all, I work for Florida Virtual School. We are not a union. We are not unionized. Nobody at Florida Virtual School is unionized. Don't tell me. On a good week, I work 65 hours a week.
At home.
Just for clarification.
Is virtual schools at home? I don't know. I'm asking.
Yes.
Yes, so you're at home. Okay, that's
Let's
great.
be careful not to diminish what I do, because
I would not. I have no
That was-
intention of diminishing it. I just would like to see you go to
Yes.
Tarjay and make the same money and come back to Philly.
Oh,
That's what I'd like.
I
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
absolutely will.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
Thank you so much. I hope next time we hear you up here, and I'm sure we will, that
Oh, yes.
we will be calling you Dr. Ado. Is that
Addo.
Addo?
Yeah, absolutely. Me
That is
too.
that is wonderful that you're continuing your education.
Thank you.
We and I'm glad you started this debate. So
I
greatly
look forward
appreciate
to
it. Best of
responses
luck.
from my emails that are not auto-generated, or responses to my emails that are not auto-generated.
I have no auto generation. Thank you.
Just a regular response.
You rock.
Thank you so much.
Did I do the